The news and the question from spring training camp is this: sometimes it feels like starting over.
You are Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, gang, thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. Greatly appreciate it. I want to thank the folks from FanDuel Sportsbook, the NBA's official sportsbook. That says a lot. You can get more details on what's going on FanDuel. Go to fanduel.com/lockedon for details, courtesy of the folks here from Locked On Huskers. So it's a statement and a question at the same time. Coach Matt Rhule made a point that for a lot of what they're doing at camp and these spring practices, it feels like starting over, which leads to the question: is the program starting over? Is the team starting over? And those are his words, that players are going to have to reassess the process and what they know to be true and the skill sets and the talents that they have. They have to relearn the verbiage. They have to there's a ton of newness to Nebraska football. And I had to remind myself when I look at film and when I'm actually in front of the players that I have to be careful in what my eyes are seeing versus what my brain knows to be true. What my eyes see is energy and effort, which are the things that you want to see first. Players that care enough to work in full. And by that, I don't mean fake hustling, right? Not the rah-rah. I'm talking about actually being athletically arrogant and still being coachable at the same time. Being able to watch players put their hands in the right place and then take the rep. And this is when you know that some positive things are happening. So I'll give credit to that. That when a player goes through a rep, so let's say it's a quarterback, and the quarterback gets his instruction from his coach, and they're all running the same play or at least the same drill, and they will go through it and be arrogant in it because none of what they're being asked is new. It's just new in the way it's coached and new in its in the mission of it. And they will go through the rep, and sometimes it is throwing it out pattern. Sometimes it's ball handling. Sometimes it's footwork. Sometimes it's cadence and trying to get the play call right and trying to get the other 10 players on the field on the same page. But then hearing the teaching and the coaching happen, and then watching those players as they wait in between the next rep. If there's so sometimes it's one player at a time, sometimes it's at a group. But either way, you get to see how the players are processing the information that they just acquired. And each rep should be either either teaching or elevated execution. Right? That if it's not something new, repetition makes you a master at it. And if it is new, then the teaching and the acquiring of not only information but the muscle memory to go along with it. That's what the Huskers are dealing with. That's what they're dealing with. So you're looking to see whether the player goes to the rep and then as he stands and waits or prepares for the next one, they're mechanically trying to reset muscle memory. Okay, I need to have my eyes here. I need to have my release point at the right place. I need to move my feet in a certain cadence, because if you did it and you didn't achieve it quick enough, then you're trying to speed up yourself mentally so that you can do it physically. If you're moving too fast, if you're If you get your arm out of its throwing slot, then you're trying to remember, okay, here's where that throwing window is going to be. Sometimes the window is going to move, and it may change the quarterback's throwing angle. So learning what's happening in the teaching, and then the acknowledgement that, okay, I know what you want me to do, and I got the message. So now I just need repetition to get that one thing right, or that series of one things right. And that's what Matt Rhule was talking about. That it's not so much sitting in a depth chart and trying to figure out, who's the most talented or any of those things. It is really the re-teaching and the re-coaching of all the players who are currently on the roster and at spring practice in full. And then he's trying to be aware, consciously aware, purposefully aware of each little thing that a player does and their reaction and reception to it. That he doesn't want players to beat themselves up if there's a bad rep or there's a misunderstanding about what their responsibilities are. What's your role on the play? What's your responsibility? What's the thing that you're looking for? And when you're talking about running backs, and there was this huge social media movement when there was a conversation with a running back, and the coach got on him and said, no, do it again, do it again, do it again. The reason behind that has to be understood between the coach and the player, not so much the fan and the player. Don't have to understand what the coach seems to be saying. It's in a conversation that has its own place between that coach and that player that existed before that rep. And maybe it's reteaching, recoaching at that moment, or maybe it's relearning and reacquiring of information. And I can say this from habit and from history, that coaches only get frustrated when there's a lack of effort, there's a lack of intent, or there's a lack of execution. They want to understand, okay, did you know what I was asking you to do? Have I taught you that? Do you know how to do it? Have I seen you do it? And then are you doing it at full speed? And so spring practice with different coaches and different players is more about reaching a common working space between how that coach wants to teach, what that coach wants to teach, how the player receives it, and then how the player executes that information. And Matt Rhule said, look, there are going to be times when it feels like we're starting over, because they are. And it'll consistently be that way until August, even through spring camp, spring game, through summer camp. There's going to be reteaching, relearning, reacquiring, and reprocessing. But we'll throw the break there. We'll come back. More Locked On Huskers. We'll take you through Matt Rhule and something else he said that draws a little bit of curiosity to me, so I'll ask it to you. We'll be right back. Welcome back, gang. Thank you once again for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every day. Locked On College Baseball is coming. It's that time to transition now that the championship has been won. Now it's time to transition. And NFL Draft. Locked On NFL Draft, there's going to be tons of information over key players probably 2 rounds or so, guys that are projected into that draft. You'll get details on who those players are, what skill sets they bring, and what teams may or may not be interested in them along the way. We're talking about some of the verbiage and some of the messaging. Now, the narrative that sometimes you're starting over, especially with a new coach and new staff. Here, on top of the starting over part of it, I found it interesting that Matt Rhule said that we're helping players so that when they go pro, they have the things that they need to be successful. be careful. Be careful in that messaging and how you receive it. Because the priority and the focus almost with established programs, established winning programs, established coaches and cultures, established players, is that the first thing is first. Keep the first thing first. And I would circle this statement that, well, when they go pro, this thing will help them. Being a Nebraska Cornhusker will help you. Well, I'm going to say this, and again, feel free to challenge me in the comments or state your case in the comments. But to me, you have to be a little bit careful about not putting the priority first. If Nebraska Cornhuskers are successful in their season, then all of the opportunities that could be available to them become more available to them with higher resume and higher reputation attached to it. But winning football games at the University of Nebraska has to be focus one and 1A and 1B. It can't be that you're coaching to get players prepared for the NFL. No, Husker Nation almost demands, and you can tell me, I don't want to speak for you, but for me, what I want to hear is that all of the work and all of the steps and all of the energy and all of the effort is to beat Minnesota. Beat Minnesota. Do everything between now and late August that simply prepares you to beat Minnesota. The NFL is not paying you to coach at the University of Nebraska. The University of Nebraska is paying you to coach at the University of Nebraska. And so this coaching staff, and I understand having NFL connected and established coaches has some benefit in recruiting down the road. But for this group, for this team, this year, the focus has to be about Nebraska. It has to be about winning at Nebraska. I mean, I know I'm not naive enough to think that players aren't thinking about their NFL careers. But if you're thinking about your NFL careers and you haven't thought about beating Minnesota or winning your job at the University of Nebraska, being first team, being as good as you can be at the University of Nebraska. If you're an offensive lineman and somebody says, well, you're an NFL talent, you tell them to shut up and let me focus on beating Minnesota. I understand that it's a part of the recruiting process that for somebody that's a 4 or 5 star, the reason why they're 4 or 5 stars is how they would fall into a draft of all eligible players in 4 years from high school. That's what the star system was, that, there are 32 5-star. Okay, those guys you can project as being first round. If the draft was held based on high school players that year, that 32 of them project in the first round. Another 64 project second and third round. Those are your 4 stars. And it moves down from there. 3 stars is a range. It's just a range and a projection. But you use that for recruiting, and you use that for the fan base to get excited or not. Like, the star system is simply there. Let me help you out. It's simply there for players to be able to sell themselves and for coaching staffs to get fans excited about prospects and recruits, to allow boosters to stay connected and go, wow, we've got a 4-star, 5-star. And now with name, image, and likeness, then it certainly helps in that value, in that it helps you negotiate on either side. Hey, listen, you're a 3-star. That the NIL money you're asking for is 5-star. But 5 stars know that they're 5-star, and when you're approaching them, well, it's a thing. It's a big deal. But to say that anybody comes in 4-star, 5-star, 1-star, if you're not thinking about winning games at the University of Nebraska, then it's the wrong message, and it's a distraction, and it's a wasted opportunity. It should be a conversation about win the job, win this rep, be 1% better, all of the catchphrases, one of us, all of those things. One of us should be about Nebraska and Nebraska football and Nebraska winning. That's what one of us should equate to. It should be connected to that. One of us can't be that you're just here to move yourself to the NFL later on. Going through the drills in spring can't be about the NFL. It has to be about Nebraska. And just in the messaging, in the constant narrative, be careful, because it gives the impression that it's about something other than what it should be about. And I'm just speaking for me now, and I'll say, I don't want to hear anything about, the work that you're putting in, getting you prepared for the NFL. What I want to hear is that the work that you're putting in April and May and June and July and August will help you kick the pants off Minnesota. That's it. There's nothing else. But that's just me. That's just me. So we're to break. We'll close out. We'll talk a little bit more. The preparation film study. Film study is important, and it's a big deal for the university. Hey, gang, welcome back, and thank you once again for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. If you have not, take a moment, subscribe. Get this content sent to you so that you don't have to seek it out. You'll just get the notification that, hey, DP's talking Huskers again. Why don't you join us and do that as well? I want to thank the folks again from FanDuel Sportsbook. So much going on. Again, baseball season's there. NBA playoffs right around the corner. Lots of things to talk about and be curious about. Man, even if UFC's your thing, go ahead and jump in the pool. That the wins and losses thing for Nebraska is big on FanDuel. So 6.5. That means people think this turnaround is going to take a little bit more time. There'll be baby steps, and 6.5 being the over and under is what folks are talking about. You can tell me what you think down in the comments. It'd be greatly appreciated. So again, through the course of this thing, it was starting over. That Nebraska in spring, they're starting over. That's actually a thing. And then what the narrative is for how this should work. What are the words that folks are going to carry with them, the things that they're going to hear the most over the course of the next 2 weeks before spring game, April 22nd. And, we're 2 weeks out. So they're about to show their work and things will be put on display. But a lot of the conversation has been, how do you get players taught and then to execute? And a lot of that is in film study. And usually when it's film study, you think of gameplay, watching how other people move, watching how players work together. But individually, the players have, in today's technology, the players have all of their practice work available to them if they care for it, if they really want to put in the work. And I can tell you that with a new coach and a new scheme, and no matter what position you're in, you've got some new folks yelling at you about it in leadership and motivation. But it's important for folks to pay attention to who makes movement in the spring season and the people that the coaches talk about the most. And I can tell you to a player of all the names that have been brought up in the course of this spring practice, the players who are having the best reps at practice are also the players who are putting in the most time and getting the most from film study. Players that know the system, players that know themselves, players that know what the coaches are asking for from them, and players that are then taking that information, that knowledge, and putting it to work. Spring practice is a time of improved and elevating your intellect. The physical part of it is good to see, and it's good to know whether you can put your foot in the ground, get your hands in the right place, whether you're able to get into routes, get out of routes, make the throws, break on the ball, move the pile, stack up offensive linemen, whatever. But a big part of being noticed and moving yourself up to the front of the line when it comes to April 22nd, a big deal is the amount of time spent with your nose to the grind, looking at film, looking at yourself, looking at the team, and finding out what you, your group, and your team want and need from you. And if you're not satisfied with your place and location and your performance, film study is a great way to move your place, to change your location, to change your elevation. But we'll find out more. Yes, we will. We'll find out more throughout the course of the next couple of weeks. And then again, April 22nd, spring game tickets are on sale. Husker fans, get yours. We'll see you at Memorial Stadium. That'll be it for this episode of Locked On Huskers. I'm DP. Again, thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. And again, it's that time, NFL Draft, Locked On NFL Draft. You can find it on YouTube or wherever you consume your podcast daily. We'll close with those 3 words we love so much. Go Big Red.